Hello and welcome to Balls and Sticks, the podcast. This is Rich. Mike is um, off this week, and I think next week as well. Um, just I know this week he's going on a motorcycle ride out to the Black Hills with some other friends. But the show must go on. Before we get started with this week's show, an apology for not posting an episode last weekend. Even though there was a lot to talk about last week with the passing of NASCAR driver Kyle Busch. Both Mike and I were in Chicago for the Cubs game on Friday afternoon and didn't get a chance to record before leaving town. And the rest of the weekend, we were both kind of busy between family events, and also graduation parties. Uh, so so we apologize for not being live next last week. In talking about the Kyle Busch passing, it's something that Mike and I are still kind of processing, and it's also something. While I have my own opinion on it, it's something that I'm gonna choose to put on the back burner and talk it out once Mike is back on the air with me in a couple of weeks, as well as kind of our thoughts on what Wrigleyville looks like now, with a lot of the since a lot has changed since Mike and I were up there, which I believe was probably 2018, 2019, from the last time we were up there and saw a game in Wrigleyville. So this week, we'll be talking. So this week, we'll of course, have our poll question. We'll have 2 weeks of NASCAR races and the Indy 500 to recap since we did not do a show last week. We got to talk some Cubs baseball, even though they have been playing not the best right now. But every team goes through these tough patches, and the Cubs are no different, as well as recapping the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup finals, as we know which teams are going to be playing in those games now, or pretty much. So, this would normally be the point in the show where we would roll our intro, but Mike has all the fancy sound equipment and soundboard. So, this is what I normally like to call an unplugged episode. So, we'll just go right into the show. So last week, so we always start our show with a poll question, and we're going through our grade school PE activities. So we have 2 weeks worth of poll questions to take a look at together and kind of recap. Last week's poll question was related. 2 weeks ago, our poll question pitted Foursquare up against beanbag dodgeball. For me, I always enjoyed beanbag dodgeball a lot in elementary school. It was you had like a little beanbag, and you had to fling it around the floor. You obviously were called out if it ever if it ever was launched in the air. The hit didn't count. It had to be slid on the ground, so it involved jumping, and obviously you exposed yourself to getting hit if you were bending down and getting the beanbag off of the floor. Foursquare, I can appreciate the simplicity of the game, of it being something that you just need a good patch of concrete for out on the playground, and some chalk to draw the boundary lines, and of course four friends to play the game. And of course it can be fast paced, can be very fast paced. So I am pulling up our grade school PE activities for that real quick. All right, and 2 weeks ago, the final tally was Foursquare winning 3 votes to 2. Joining me in my preference of beanbag dodgeball was my wife Amy. But voting for Foursquare and getting the win with 3 votes was Mikey, Danielle, and Heather Marie. So thanks for voting in that poll question. Foursquare will move on to the second round. Last week's poll question, which was posted on May 25th, had three votes, and it was jump rope versus mat ball. Personally, I'm not a fan of jump rope. Um, I remember in gym class that we had a lot. It was doing like the double dutch, not just here's a jump rope, burn off some activity and do exercising. And even in my 40s of getting into the gym, um, and having jump rope as one of the activities for the workout, still not one of my favorites. Mat ball, on the other hand, very simple game. It's basically like an indoor version of kickball, to where you had um, some mats set up on the four corners of the gym. You could have the version I remember playing. You could have up to five kids on the mat at one time. In the odd event that somebody hit a single and there was a sixth person on the mat, somebody had to go, which normally resulted in an out. So, like I said, we had three votes in our poll question last week of mat ball against jump rope. Jump rope's one vote was by Mikey's wife, Danielle. Joining me in saying that mat ball was the better activity was normally my partner in crime on this show, Mikey Hart. So, mat ball will be moving on to the second round, which is our Sweet 16. Speaking of our round two matchups, we will have our first round two Sweet 16 matchup in our grade school PE activities poll. And this week's poll, which you can find on Fans of Balls and Sticks over on Facebook, is Knockout Basketball, our number one overall seed, going up against number 16, Roller Skating. So make sure to go in and help us out and vote on that poll question. If you vote, much like Heather Marie, Daniel Hart, my wife, you get a shout out on the show. And make sure to also like the post and share it. If you found the post on Facebook and voted on it, make sure to share it. Get those votes. Get our votes out. All right. So coming up next, we're gonna be going into the NASCAR corner. So we're gonna make some left turns. So 2 weeks ago was the NASCAR All Star Race in Dover. As we described 2 weeks ago on this show, the this was an all or nothing race. Mike and I would only get points if the driver we chose won the race. And thankfully and luckily for Mike, that's what happened. As Mike's pick of Denny Hamlin ended up winning the NASCAR All Star race at Dover. Denny Hamlin picked up $1 million, and Mikey picked up 2 points in our season head to head challenge, making it an 8-8 tie going into the Coke 600, which we'll recap here in a couple minutes. My pick of Ross Chastain did not finish the All Star race. He wrecked during segment two of the race. This race had two segments in it, and the results of the first two segments determined who would be in the stage three shootout for the $1 million prize. Um, the Indy 500, which also happened over Memorial Day weekend, saw Henry Rosenquist win it in what ended up being the closest finish in Indy 500 history, as I believe it was 0.02 of a second, giving Rosenquist the win. Mike's pick of Alexander Rossi finished 30th. My pick of Scott McLaughlin finished third. No points are added for the Indy 500. It's just a for fun race for Mike and I. And finally, the last race we got to recap since we did not have a show last week is the Coca Cola 600 out in Charlotte. Um, Mike picked William Byron, who finished ninth. My pick of Chase Elliott finished 37th. I was hoping for a better finish by Chase Elliott, especially since I used him in the 36 for 36 challenge. Not the type of outcome I was hoping for out of a Chase Elliott use. With William Byron finishing higher than Chase Elliott, Mike takes the lead in our head-to-head challenge with a 9-8 advantage. Daniel Suarez was your race winner down in Charlotte. He becomes the first Mexican born driver to win the event, and it's his third career victory, his first since 2024, at Atlanta. This week, as our title alludes of fast music, the boys are going to be in Nashville, the Music City, for the Cracker Barrel 400 in Nashville. So Mike filled out the outline before he left on his motorcycle ride, and he told me that he wanted to pick Tyler Reddick. No comments as to why he picked Tyler Reddick, but if I had to guess, it's because of how good Tyler Reddick is doing this year, leading the overall points standings, and he's done really well this year. So I don't blame Mike for taking Tyler Reddick. I, on the other hand, am going to go with more of a sleeper pick, but somebody who's done well at Nashville of late, and that's Zane Smith, as he's had back-to-back top 10 finishes at Nashville. And this also allows me to save some more, um, I guess, save some better drivers for later on in the year. Um, Later on in the year. So speaking of the NASCAR world and where Mike and I are at in the standings, it's 9-8, uh, kind of like the halfway point of the season. So since the outline's kind of light and there's nobody to kind of talk back to me and provide some banter back and forth, we'll kind of recap where we're at in our standings overall in fantasy NASCAR. Um, so I am currently in first place with 2698. Friend of the show, Solomon Stroop, is the man in the middle with 2430, and Mike is bringing up the rear with 2276. In our 36 for 36 league, which is the 36 for 36 challenges, you are picking a different driver every week, and you get points just the same way the drivers do based off of the race finish as well as stage points, but you can't pick the same driver more than once. In the Balls and Sticks League, which is just Mike and I, Mike is in second place with 403 points. I am in the lead with 455 points. All right. So as I said earlier on in the show, I am choosing to hold off on talking about Kyle Busch's passing until Mike is able to join me on the air so we can talk through it together, express both of our opinions of it. But the only thing that I kind of will recap about it is that Kyle Busch did pass away last Thursday before the Coke 600, severe pneumonia, which progressed into sepsis. In light of all of that, his number 8 car, Richard Childress Racing, will be temporarily retired, and they will run the number 33 car until further notice. However, in a very nice gesture, a great gesture, the number will be reactivated, when Kyle's son, Braxton Busch, who's only 11 years old, is ready to compete in NASCAR. So more on Kyle Busch's passing once Mike is able to returns from some summer activities that he's got for some planned time off that he's got from the show in a couple of weeks. So that has been the NASCAR corner, or the racing corner, since we had to talk about the Indy 500. The NASCAR Corner is always presented by Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated, Moline, Illinois, and you can also find them on eBay. Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated for all your sports cards, memorabilia, and I think also Pokemon cards. Check them out. All right, we're going to keep making left-hand turns and talk about the Chicago Cubs. So 2 weeks ago, the Cubs went through a really rough patch, as Mike wrote in our online post recapping what our picks were going to be. They dropped two with the White Sox. They lost all three against the Brewers, and they also lost the game that Mike and I and some other and his dad and our buddy Matt Johnson went to up in Wrigley to the Astros. So we both said that they would get the three wins out of those 5 games between the White Sox and the Brewers. They got swept. That wasn't the only losing that the Cubs were doing at the time, as last week they finished off the series against the Astros, getting swept in that series in Chicago. They ended a what ended up being a 10-game losing streak by winning the last 2 games with the Pittsburgh Pirates in Pittsburgh before dropping the Friday night game with the Cardinals down in St. Louis. So they were 2-5 last week. So when Mike sent me a message about their finally breaking through and getting a win on Tuesday night, on Wednesday night, sorry, Wednesday night against the Pirates, he said, "Finally, we got a win." And I replied to him, "I bet you we're one of the few teams that has had both a 10-game winning streak and a 10-game losing streak in the same season." And according to Gemini, and I think it also saw read in the write up recap that ESPN put together for that game that were from Wednesday, where they finally snapped their losing streak. We are in fact the second team to have multiple 10-game winning streaks and a 10-game losing streak in the same season. That other team was the 2017 LA Dodgers. That Dodger team went on to still had an amazing run as they compiled a 101 win season, but ultimately fell to the Houston Astros in the World Series that year. Although I'm sure if Mike were on here, he would say that they got robbed of that World Series, since that was the infamous World Series with the trash can Astros of cheating due with the illegal pitch tipping system that they devised. Um, so this week the Cubbies will be taking on the St. Louis Cardinals for 2 games down in St. Louis. You can catch both of those games on primetime TV over the air, even as tonight's game on Saturday night will be on Fox, Big Fox Network. And then on Sunday night, you get to see the game broadcast on NBC. So it'll be neat to see what NBC's broadcast is like, as I think that's the first broadcast I've had a chance to watch. Um, after the after a day off on Monday, I believe they take on the Athletics, the Las Vegas slash Sacramento Athletics, for 3 games at home in Chicago before welcoming the San Francisco Giants in the town for a Friday afternoon tilt. Mike said that they would get 3 wins out of those 6 games, and I think I'd have to agree with him. The offense is playing better. The offense is putting runs on the board, which was an issue in that 10-game losing streak. And but now it's the pitching not being able to keep the other team off of the board. So I would agree with him. I'm going to go with 3 wins as well. So in talking about getting the team of what the team, well, how this team is playing right now, normally one thing that you see managers do when the offense isn't putting runs on the board and it seems like everybody is struggling all at the same time is they shake up the lineup. And one thing, one And one thing that they have done with shaking up the lineup has been putting P. Crow Armstrong at the leadoff spot, shuffling everybody else down in the order, which puts Nico Horner in the two hole. They've been batting, I think they've been using Ian Happ third and putting Alex Bregman fourth in the lineup. Changes, I think I've liked those changes, but the one change that I'd like to see him do more and find a way to get a guy the at bats is Kevin Alcantara. Kevin Alcantara has been doing really good, putting up great numbers in AAA Iowa in Des Moines, earned a promotion up to the big league roster. However, since he's been here, he's been riding the bench. They haven't gotten him in at DH as they've chosen to give those DH at bats to Michael Conforto, who has come up with some good clutch hits. But I think Michael Conforto at this stage in his major league career he's on the team on a rather low dollar major league deal as a kind of prove it guy to see if he can see if the Cubs can help him reclaim the form that I think won him like a rookie of the year a couple when he first came up with the Mets. But the guy just hasn't been the same since he got paid in his first free agency deal. Whereas Kevin Alcantara is a guy that we acquired in the Chris Bryant trade back in 23, and he's been slowly making his way up to the major leagues through doing great in the minor leagues. And quite frankly, I think we owe it to the kid to play him, not just not just because he's earned the playing time with the production that he's done up in the minors, but it would also make sense from a team building standpoint to see if he is a viable option for the Cubs to take one of the outfield spots that belongs to Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki since they're free agents at the end of the year. See if his bat plays in the major leagues. See how he does in left field and right field to see where where he could fit with the Cubs long term, or at the very least, see what he can do at the major league level. As he's had a couple of cups of coffee with the Cubs late in the season, but his sporadic playing time has not given him a chance to really put up any noticeable numbers. Only playing in mop up duty or just a random one off game to give one of the regulars a shot. Obviously, obviously with Pete Crow Armstrong finally starting to hit his stride, and now Hap getting back on track. It'd be hard to bench Hap, Suzuki, or even benching Pete Crow Armstrong for a game. But there's always the DH spot. Do you need to have Michael Conforto in the lineup? Moises Ballesteros has cooled off a lot since his hot May when the Cubs were on those 10-game winning streaks. Give the guy a chance. For comparison, I looked up some numbers on where he would rank. Because he has been doing really well in his 41 games with Triple A. For comparison, home runs. He would currently be the Cubs home run leader if you included his numbers in AAA with the current major league roster, as he has 15 home runs. The team leader with home runs through last night's game is Ian Happ with 13 runs batted in. The guy's got 32 RBIs. That would place him tied for second with the team, only behind Michael Bush, who has 33. Batting average. His current batting average is when the minor leagues is 242. Not great, but that would still make him fourth on the team in batting average, only behind Alex Bregman's 260, Suzuki's 252, and Nico Horner's 250. And probably another stat worthwhile to look at in comparing to why Kevin Alcantara should hopefully get some playing time when comparing his stats with the rest of the team is his on base percentage. His on base percentage through those 44 games down in Des Moines was 906. The current Cubs leader in on base percentage is Michael Bush with an on base percentage of 372 compared to Alcantara's 339. So that 339 still puts him in the top five when compared to the big leaguers on this team, only trailing Bush, Happer, Seiya Suzuki, and Alex Bregman. And if you go on base percentage plus slugging, he's slugging 906. Combining his on base percentage with his slugging percentage, 906. There's a big gap with his on base and slugging percentage compared to the major league team, and that's Ian Happ with 829. I hope that as they're hopefully snapping out of this long losing streak, they can find some bats for Alcantara. The only thing that I can think of that maybe that they're why they're not playing him is because maybe, just maybe, they're trying they're trying to hide him. They're trying to hide some deficiencies in his game because obviously he's been a top prospect for the team for many years. And right now, the Cubs they really need a starting pitcher. So maybe they're not playing him because they plan on trading him in later on in July to get the top flight pitcher. But if the Cubs think of him as a long term solution and could be a replacement for Hap or Suzuki next year, and I think they owe it to themselves to play him, if not to see if he can provide a spark for the offense. So we'll see. We'll have to see more on him. I'll try and remember to see how he did if he got some playing time this upcoming week. Well, but that's all. I'll come off my Kevin Alcantara soapbox. So I hope they can find some playing time for him, either out in the outfield to give Hap or Suzuki some days off to clear their heads, or just to get them off their feet and have them DH and put the young kid out in the outfield, or or putting putting Michael Conforto on the bench to serve as a pinch hitter, which was supposed to be his intended role this year. Before some injuries and some slumps started getting in. So once again, Mike and I are both going with 3 wins this week as they take on the Cardinals, the Athletics, and the Giants. All right, moving on to the indoor sports, which we don't cover very often, the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup finals. Um, in the NBA, Mike went with the Thunder. I went with the Spurs. Both teams are currently facing off in the Western Conference Finals, and they are going to a game 7, which is going to be tonight on Saturday. The winner will be taking on the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals, which will start on Wednesday. For the New York Knicks, the last time they were in the NBA Finals was the strike-shortened 1999 season, which they lost to Tim Duncan's San Antonio Spurs, and their last NBA championship was won all the way back in 1973. So personally, I think I would love to see the New York Knicks win an NBA championship just to snap that championship drought. And most of the time, when a New York team is doing well, that means the league is doing well as well. So, however, we do know for sure what the Stanley Cup playoffs will be. And on air, when Mike and I picked who we thought our Stanley Cup winners would be, um, I'm pretty sure we came to an unofficial agreement on that the Stanley Cup would be our lunch bet, as we both picked teams from opposite conferences. I went with the Hurricanes, who play in the Eastern Conference, and they ended up advancing to the Stanley Cup Finals, defeating the Montreal Canadiens 4 games to 1. Mike's pick of the Colorado Avalanche, however, got swept in the Western Conference Finals by the Vegas Golden Knights. I know that Mike is a little bit of a Golden Knights fan since deciding to boycott the Chicago Blackhawks. So I don't think that he would have an issue making this our lunch bet. But when he comes back on air in a couple of weeks, we can confirm that. So the Stanley Cup Finals will start on Tuesday, I believe it is, with the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. So make sure to check out that action on, as I believe either ABC or TNT has the Stanley Cup Finals. Let me check that real quick before steering, so because I don't necessarily want to steer you in the wrong direction. It will be ABC, and they start on June 2nd. So the Stanley Cup Finals actually starts on a Monday night. So the other future topic that we have really haven't had a chance to talk on yet is the World Cup. The World Cup is going to be starting next, the second week of June. So, being so early on in the tournament, I think Mike and I both have some time to pick an adopted country to root on and follow throughout the tournament, other than the United States. So when Mike and I are back on air together, we'll both give you our adopted country for the World Cup. All right, so that is all I have for you this week. So if you're watching us here on YouTube, either live on or at a later date, if this has popped up in your YouTube feed, make sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe, help get our episodes out to more people. Um, and uh, and also you can catch our episodes on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, um, Apple Podcasts, just to name a few. Mike normally tries to get our episodes up fairly regularly, but it'll probably be a couple weeks before probably be a batch of episodes getting up at a later date with him having some other obligations and travel plans over the next couple of weeks. Um, but yeah, look us up if you just prefer the audio option. Look us up over on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And also, you can always find our poll questions on our Facebook page, Fans of Balls and Sticks. This week's poll question is currently live: PE activities, mat ball versus roller skating. So make sure to go over to our Facebook page, vote on the poll, share it out with other people so we can get a big number and get a good pick distribution for those activities. So I thank you all for joining us on today's episode. Mike will be back in a couple of weeks. So be safe out there, Mike. If you're listening to this either live or in a couple or on delay on your ride back from the Black Hills, and for everybody else, God bless, and we will see you all next week.